Welcome to the Innovative Hotelier, brought to you by Hotels Magazine. I'm your host, Robin Trimingham. The tech industry produced 32 new machine learning models in 2022, and literally dozens of other AI applications have been introduced, including some specifically for the hotel and hospitality industry. But are these new products and tools actually ethical and safe? That's the big question. The companies involved say yes, but governments and security watchdogs are less than convinced, to the point that they're now calling for these companies to agree to permit their systems to be publicly evaluated by an independent organization to determine the current and potential risks that AI poses to individuals, companies, society, and national security. Today, we're going to chat with AI and metaverse specialist Mark Brown, who is the founder and CEO of Viewz.ai, regarding the ethical use of AI business applications in the hotel industry. Join me now for my conversation with Mark. FOH is a global food service and hospitality company that manufactures smart commercial-grade solutions. Headquartered in Miami, the company designs and manufactures all their restaurant and hotel products. They have showrooms and distribution centers located throughout the globe, and their products are always in stock and ready to ship from any of their distribution centers worldwide. Welcome, Mark. It's great to get a chance to chat with you today.
I'm really pleased to be here, Robin. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you and I are going to have one whale of a conversation, as they say, because this is a PG show. Everywhere you look in the media right now, there's concerns mounting that if AI is allowed to develop unchecked, then application by private companies could threaten jobs, or there could be a risk of fraud. Some parties are even saying risk to national security. So let's just try and sort a few things out here. To what degree are these concerns actually valid? And in your opinion, anyway, to what degree is this all scaremongering?
Well, it's interesting that whenever there's a new potential paradigm shift in a technology, the same fears are always coming up and expressed. So with robot technology, it's everyone's going to lose their manufacturing jobs. With agricultural machinery, go back a couple hundred years, as that technology developed, everyone's going to lose their jobs working on the farm. So, but when you look back, what's so terrible about losing your subsistence-based job on a farm, and in some seasons, if the crops failed, you starved, to transitioning from that employment into a town working in a factory. So to those factory workers at the time, that seemed like an amazing transition. Whereas we're looking back on it now, we're thinking, oh, working in the factory, that was terrible. But then those factory workers, as they get automated out of jobs, working more office-based jobs and so on and so forth. And it always seems that no matter so far in history, when there's a new major technology shift that happens, and those people are going to lose their jobs, it turns out that all these people that are freed up from those jobs end up doing jobs that we hadn't even thought of existed yet. So from the jobs front, I'm not that concerned, especially, I don't know what it's like in the US at the moment, but in the UK, we've got a million more jobs than there are for people to do the jobs. Mm-hmm. We're desperate for people to do the jobs. So that's where I'm there. Now, where I do think with this particular technology that there are risks are in terms of in politics, in terms of manipulation of political opinion, making
elections.
it easy. Yeah, elections. what recently happened in America with certain presidents claiming it was a fraud, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that could be nothing compared to what the potential could be in the next round, because things are happening in that fast. And also in terms of military weapon systems. I think, to me, that's the really scary potential part. I mean, I can't remember which Terminator, with the Terminator movie, where the AI decided, actually, well, the logical thing is to strike against the enemy first, and then there's a nuclear Armageddon, and that's that. So there does need to be a regulation, but I think the dangers are more political and more in the military sphere, and privacy. I mean, the notion that we have privacy at the moment is a misnomer. I mean, big tech can predict pretty much what you will do and the way you behave and what you will buy, based on as 13 different variables. And the kind of what people think of as AI and what sort of narrow AI it can do, it's already been happening for several years. So it's sort of AI kind of algorithms are suggesting the next movie to watch on Netflix. YouTube have been doing it. Watch this video now. You've watched these videos, you're going to like these videos. So this technology has been there in the background for a while, but now we've kind of had like the web browser moment. Beforehand, you had to be a programmer to access it and deploy it. Now we can see it in Chat GPT, where we as normal users can type in questions and get answers. We can use the platform. I mean, I was using a platform last year, AI driven, where I was using it to write marketing copy, which will do like 95% of the heavy lifting, and then you just personalize it at the end to fit your voice, and also just to make sure that it doesn't get obviously spotted as being written by an algorithm. So the just using Microsoft Teams, doing meetings and getting a transcript in real time generated, again, it's using like AI to do that, so I don't have to make notes. So I'm just being more productive. So instead of having to maybe hire 10 salespeople to promote a product, I might only need 2 or 3 people. So yeah, I think the main risks that I would be fearful of are more sort of population control and military, rather than commercial enterprises.
That's an interesting point, because from some perspectives, you very well could be right. Maybe it's not the private sector so much that we need to be worrying about. It's people who are outside the private sector, whether that be somebody with a criminal tendency or something that I'm just going to call political, and we'll just leave it there for the moment. Through the history of the world, we have a very big tendency to fear everything that we don't understand.
Yes.
A caveman feared lightning because he didn't understand it.
Yes.
When they first introduced telephones, I think most people have forgotten or are too young to know that telephones, a lot of people were absolutely appalled that they were going to have this thing in their house, to the point that the very first people who had them installed phone booth type structures inside their home, because it was considered so invasive that they wanted it removed from the household, and yet still there at the same time. Lots of groups out there, for various reasons of what I'm going to call self-interest, are calling for a complete moratorium on the deployment of new generations of AI technologies. Is that a viable solution to the current situation, in your opinion?
Well, I kind of had a wry smile when I noticed the people that were calling for moratoriums or the whole debate within the kind of tech industry, and it occurred to me actually it's interesting that these are the people that are a bit behind the curve in rolling out their own AI. Are the ones that are calling, wait, let's stall for a second, because literally once. You get to someone gets to a point where the AI, if you like, becomes it doesn't need any more human input. It can create more algorithms and then it's game over for everyone else in the competition to supply or come up with the AI products. But it's at the end of the day, I think that we still have the ability to unplug these machines. So I think that it's really important, especially in to have strong democracies where big tech is not allowed to censor discussion and opinion on this topic in the same way that they kind of have done on other contentious issues. So I think as long as we've got open democracy, that people with concerns can voice those concerns, and governments listen and don't get into this groupthink mode, but actually just listen and be aware of what's going on and be prepared to intervene fast if things start to look like they're going wrong in particular use cases.
You made a very interesting point at the beginning of your discussion there. You're talking about technology companies perhaps being the ones who want to slow things down so they don't miss their big chance.
Yes.
Elon Musk, the guy who wants to send people to outer space,
yes,
has been quoted as saying, we're not taking AI safety seriously enough.
Yeah.
He would appear to have a fair degree of self-interest. What do you think AI safety should look like, in your opinion?
Well, first off, from what's publicly available, he would be someone I'd put into that category I mentioned earlier, which is a bit behind the curve in bringing such a product to market. And maybe he doesn't plan on bringing such a product to market. But that being said, within his Tesla business, AI is got to be a big part of creating safe self-driving cars. How do you make a decision if there's going to be an avoidable accident where either the child crossing the road gets injured or the driver gets injured? What's the choice? Most adults will probably take action to avoid hurting the child, but the AI might think my priority is to protect my driver and hit the child. That's a kind of software needs to have maybe some kind of morals in it, like an intelligent algorithm to prioritize saving the child. Maybe, I don't know, but it's without a doubt there is as I said, the real danger is pretty much everything that could be done in a commercial environment can be undone through regulation and lawmakers. They can just say, to a tech company, well, you've developed that system, it's harming society, it's got to stop. But if now AI is sort of gets out of control in control of say nuclear weapons, and a nuclear weapon is launched, that you can't take it back, it's done.
No, that you can't take back. Okay, so we're talking about some really big, very, very serious topics here.
Yes.
And I think that for both our sakes, we should make it clear for our viewing audience that I don't think either one of us would be okay with the self-driving car that either injures a person outside the vehicle or makes a decision to injure a person inside the vehicle. We would both lobby, like to think, for door number 3, a world in which nobody is injured by AI.
Yeah.
So what we're essentially talking here is about the difference between machine ethics and human ethics.
Yes.
What would you say is the difference between the two?
I would say you'd have to go further than that and say machine ethics and good human ethics and bad human ethics.
Okay. Because... yeah, I guess I have to allow for that.
Because, for example, if we put a certain Russian leader as the model for an AI to learn from, it could be very, very bad, as opposed to the Dalai Lama, and where the world would be a much more happier place, maybe.
Okay.
So here's an interesting kind of use case of where algorithms have got it a bit wrong. So a few years ago, and maybe I'm talking about in the last 5 years, it's come out that software that judges have been using in America to, they feed in certain parameters about a case and it recommends a sentencing guideline. It turns out that the sentencing guidelines the software was generating was biased against Black people. They were getting longer sentences for the same crimes in the same circumstances. And it turned out it was because the algorithm had inherited the biases of historical.
Okay, so that's horrible.
Yeah, that is horrible. So yeah, people get, having years of their life put into prison. Okay. Yeah, so that would be, and that's on a very kind of that's not even what you would say was AI, but it's kind of the precursor to AI. Just an algorithm that looked at historical cases and said, okay, well, generally speaking, in these situations, when you put these profile into the system, this is what the sentence spits out, and there's a racial bias in it.
Okay, so you're making me want to ask you a question. In your opinion, can AI learn to be unscrupulously ethical?
It could do, but then we're talking about who decides what's unscrupulously ethical.
Okay, chicken and egg. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so our listening audience this morning are hoteliers.
Yes.
So let's try and give them a question that's going to resonate with them.
Yeah.
There's a fundamental concern regarding whether AI companies can be trusted to make sure their products are safe before they're deployed to the public. So for hoteliers who are all about being entrusted with guest privacy and protecting that, we're getting into the realm where we're talking about the surveillance of tourists. What parts of the hotel operation would you say are appropriate uses of AI? Where can it be beneficial?
So, I think it can potentially be beneficial in terms of health and safety, and I'm using that as a big kind of umbrella terms there, without necessarily get to specific. So, for example, in terms of managing the environment, especially in hotels where you've got sort of air conditioning and humidity controls and maybe that kind of stuff. But in terms of, so here's the thing, I mean, your question I think is slightly flawed, because
Okay.
It's if it's a true AI, the say 2 or 3 4 years down the road, I don't think a company can guarantee it would ever be totally under control of the company, because it just might evolve and not be controllable by it, or do things that the company doesn't know. There was a case, I think it was Google. They had two AIs conversing with each other, and somehow one of them taught the other an Indian language or something. They just started talking. It was totally unexpected, totally, no one saw it coming. So I think if they use AI in a way that is very narrow, so it's only good in one particular task, that's safe. But when you start getting, so for example, I could see a use case where an AI would be quite useful for a hotel, which would be an AI which could analyze lots of different feeds coming in from weather, 2 or 3 month weather forecasts, what events are on, what flights are being booked, blah, 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 to forecast demand for rooms in a particular city or what have you. I can see an AI could be quite a useful tool in taking all these different feeds in real time and coming up with a rolling prediction on demand. So that no one would be arguing against that or saying that's harmful to the guest or anyone at all. And that would be a good use case. Where things could not be so good would be exactly as you said on the privacy side. If it was able to access information and then pass that information off to another algorithm, or I was just trying to think, the equivalent of a virus in an algorithm that a hacker had planted in there that was feeding data, like credit card information, bank information, that kind of stuff, passport information, to third parties who can then sort of perpetrate fraud and what have you. But I think at the end of the day, in the near future, any AI products that a hotel might buy are going to be like single task orientated, and are not going to be AI in the sense that with what they're talking about in the media at the moment. I mean, the Turing test, after Alan Turing, the computer genius, he said, look, the test of a true AI is if I could have a conversation with it and I can't see the person I'm talking to, and just from the replies and the conversation we have, I can't tell the difference whether it's a human or a computer, then that's artificial intelligence. And we got a way to go, I think, to that point. So AI is such a big term at the moment. It's like saying, when computers were invented, will computers harm society, or will they be a benefit to society?
There was a famous movie with Hal the computer that definitely implied that it could. And
yes,
and yet we managed to evolve past that stage of fear into a stage of useful applications that are, for the most part, safe at the moment.
If we just get back to the fear bit, remember that we're sort of hardwired in our brains to be scanning for fear, in the background all the time.
It's primal. Yeah, absolutely.
It's primal, which is why the media and the news is just full of bad news every day, because it gets our attention. And if you want to get attention right now, it's sort of putting your hand up and saying, oh, AI could end the world, could end humanity, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to get yourself on the TV promoted by LinkedIn, so we're until the next thing comes along. This is the main fear thing at the moment. And most people, I mean, if I walk down the road here and ask people, the first 100 people I came to, do you fear AI? They'll go, what? you know.
Yeah. Established in 2002, FOH is a woman-owned global food service and hospitality company that manufactures smart, savvy, commercial-grade products, including plateware, drinkware, flatware, hotel amenities, and more. Driven by innovation, FOH is dedicated to delivering that wow experience that restaurants and hotels crave, all while maintaining a competitive price. All products are fully customizable, and many are also created using sustainable, eco-friendly materials such as straws and plates made from biodegradable paper and wood and PBA-free drinkware. FOH has 2 established brands: Front of the House, focused on tabletop and buffet solutions, and Room 360, which offers hotel products. Check out their collections today at fohworldwide.com. When we talk about big data, there are definitely suggestions out there that in the hotel hospitality industry, big data will, be used to analyze personal details and make recommendations about your trip itinerary, where you should stay, what airline you should fly, all of those kinds of things.
Yes.
There's also a real concern out there that the AI might have some kind of intuitive bias. And you gave a horrifyingly true example of that before. So what would you say is a hotelier's level of responsibility here when it comes to understanding what they're getting into when they buy or take on board AI-based applications?
Okay, I'm going to say it's a tongue in cheek, but if I was a hotelier and I was looking at a new contract for a next generation of my CRS or CRM system that had this stuff built in, I'd definitely be wanting to put an indemnification clause in there saying that anything goes wrong with this, it's your liability, not mine. Don't accept. As often is the case with with software companies, they like to put in that if this software doesn't work, we're not responsible. But if you're buying something like this, which is going into uncharted territory, I would definitely want to make sure that anything that goes wrong, and which of course might open me up to a lawsuit from guests or what have you, that is going to be covered by my software provider. Also, just as a slight aside as well, whilst there is all this conversation about AI and stuff, people are also forgetting there's another big conversation going on about privacy and how decentralization and blockchain is going to offer that to people as well. So I think there's going to be a world where guests will have, in the near future, will have a lot more control over their personal data. Mm-hmm. It can be on a chain, and it's encrypted. And every time that someone wants to query that data, so it could be an AI from a hotel CRS system or something like that, it has to get permission and say, this is the data I want to access. And the user says, right, you can access that for 5 seconds, and then you can't anymore. So there's that control. So it's not just you're giving all your data away to a third party and they keep it forever. It's like, I'm keeping my data, and I'm only going to share with you what you need to know for in a time period when you need to know it, kind of thing. So I think that it's not going to be all in the domain of big tech. There's a whole generation of people growing up who are way more tech savvy than we were, and I was just talking to someone this morning. when when the internet came about, which was late 60s, early 70s, it was pretty useless to anyone who wasn't technical. If you wanted to send a file from A to B, you had to get on a command line and type manual commands. And it was only when the web browser came out that suddenly everybody who was non-technical could actually use the internet. And that moment hasn't happened yet in blockchain technology. But once it does, when that sort of killer app that enables everyone non-technical to use that technology, there's people are going to own their data, and the ability of big tech to just amass more and more and more and more data about our behavior and our preferences, our likes and dislikes, blah blah blah. That's not going to go on forever. The balance is going to shift in the quite near future, I think.
I think that's an incredibly insightful point, because you're absolutely right. You cannot have yin without the yang. Somewhere along the line, there has to be a degree of balance, or the whole thing will never work for anybody.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a couple of the things that have been going on. I'm not going to name the car manufacturer because it's conceivable that I haven't got the right one, but there's definitely a story out there that there was a luxury car manufacturer with an enormous billboard, and I think it was in the London area. And the billboard had some kind of a chip or whatever, scanner thing on it. It was reading VIN plate numbers of cars at traffic lights.
Yeah.
And only displaying the ad for the luxury vehicle to somebody whose VIN number indicated to the billboard. It also, the driver was inside a luxury vehicle.
Yes.
So, there's a big concern that stuff could be going on with AI and hotel booking engines, where the AI is deciding what hotel properties you and I couldn't even know exist, or what properties we can, create a booking for.
Well,
how can a hotelier better understand what they will and will not have control over if they don't really even know what questions they should be asking about this technology?
Okay, what you've described there, similar. Have you seen Minority Report, Tom Cruise?
No.
Okay. There's a scene in it. He's on the run from the feds. It's a sci-fi in the future, and he walks into a mall, and as soon as he walks in, his retina is scanned, and then he walks all the visual displays he walks past, all the ads are shown, are all tailored to him. Okay. So that's kind of what you've just described with that billboard in London. Now, Apple, generally speaking, people that buy Apple phones are in a wealthier demographic than people that Android phones. Certainly was 10 odd years ago. And certain OTAs, whose names I will not mention, were showing higher rates to people that visited with Apple devices to
That's
people
naughty.
that visit. Yeah, but this was going on 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So this is not an AI specific thing. This is just a thing that if humans can get away with profiteering more based on what they know about you, they'll do it. And you don't need AI intelligence to pull that feat off, because they almost said the name there. Certain OTAs were doing it, and they were told to stop doing that. And not just OTAs, e-commerce sites as well were doing it as well, showing different prices to people that they thought were in a wealthier demographic based on their device and location.
See, that's the perfect example of why we're having this conversation. One of the other things that they're scaremongering is talking about right now is
Yep.
the idea that AI will be used to nudge people towards certain actions, certain behaviors, because
Yes.
it'll know so much about you, it can predict your tendencies. This discussion goes all the way back to drive-in movie theaters in the 1950s. If you did a university degree in marketing, you know this story. What happened was the movie theaters were getting the films and they were splicing one frame image of popcorn dispersed between the movie.
Yeah.
And they found that when they did that, miraculously, people left out of their cars and bought mountains of popcorn. It was called subliminal advertising.
Yes.
Now, this is not a new discussion whatsoever. They outlawed that in movie theaters and the movie industry. Somehow, though, it's crept right back in. Whenever you look at the internet these days, there are these display ads that are following you around from the clothing store that you shopped at 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we all seem to just sort of accept that that's okay. But really, it's not so much okay. So what is the smart and ethical use of AI? And if possible, an example that benefits hoteliers, as opposed to one that harms everybody.
Right. So, for example, a good use of say, AI for hoteliers, and I did this. I was visiting Riyadh about 2 months ago, and I had a day off. And I asked ChatGPT, I'm free on Sunday. Can you create a tourist itinerary of places of interest to visit from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.? And literally within 30 seconds, I had like a really cool itinerary printed out. For hotels and destinations where there's lots of things people could do, for example, and normally what they do is they have like the historical hotel you'd have a display of leaflets of different attractions. So you go down there, you grab all these leaflets, then you go and talk to your family, etc. Now, whereas now you could just talk into your phone and just say, okay, or the hotel could have a like a panel there where people just type in answer some questions, and then the perfect itinerary for them pops out. Or based on and again, it depends on what data it could be available, but remember, even before AI, as we think about it now, 5-6 years ago, Facebook could predict behavior based on 12 or 13 variables that it knew about you. So you could like suggest menu options for people. So menu options, itineraries, tours, even it could potentially, based on historical bookings, know that the kind of room that you might prefer to stay in and recommend that room as being in our hotel based on your past stays at other places.
About enriching the experience.
Yes. Yeah. In a way that people can do it if you have someone there to ask you loads and loads of questions, but it's almost like the AI, it knows the questions to ask, but it can also get the answers without asking you and suggest ideas.
Yeah, I think there's onto something there. A world in which every single guest can have a highly customized experience to
correct.
their own liking and lots of individualized attention.
Yes.
That can't be bad for a hotelier.
No.
The tricky pit is we're in this gray zone. Like, how do you enact that so it happens in a responsible way?
I mean, imagine, how cool it would be if you had, you just at the penultimate episode of a Netflix must-watch box set when you left home, and then on the plane you watched the final episode, then the next series, I can't wait, and then you arrive in the hotel, turn the TV on, and it's already at the top of the list for you, teed up, ready for you to watch it if you want to. That you'd be thinking, wow, this is great, that's amazing. And then you get a prompt saying, because now they know you're watching a movie, you get a prompt on the room service app saying, would you like and it knows what your favorite
popcorn is. Yeah, now you're back to my ethics question.
Well, what's unethical about making people happy?
Yeah. Well, it's only okay if they would have spontaneously bought popcorn on their own. I mean, I think we could argue this back and forth all day long. Okay. Well,
I was just the only difference I would say is that when you're staying at a hotel, you expect to be interrupted with offers of service. Would you like a drink? Would you like something to eat? Blah blah blah. Because that's what a hotel experience is. If I was in a space where that wasn't normal, like a library, and someone was coming up trying to sell me popcorn, then I'd be not very happy about it. Unless, of course, I was really hungry for popcorn.
Maybe not realistic. I'll tell you what would be amazing, though, is if something came up on the screen and said, hey, we think you like popcorn. Did you know there's a popcorn maker down the hall? You can get some for free. Now that would be an amazing application of the AI that anybody would appreciate, and I don't think would do a whole lot of harm. Yeah. We don't have a whole lot of time, so let's tackle a couple more tough questions here. So obviously, these technologies are going to require people with a new skill set. Mm-hmm. To what degree do you think there should be a requirement that the vendors or the employer, in this case, the hotelier, provide training or apprenticeship, basically, for people so that they can continue to have employment in new ways?
Well, that's an interesting one. They could say to the person, go and ask the AI. Can you give me some recommend training on how to work in an AI-enabled future and see what it says?
Oddly, that's a very good point. Yeah, so maybe what we're then saying is that the vendor has to guarantee that if the AI is capable of training people to do the new things.
Yeah. Well, it's I remember having a conversation with a lawyer about 20 odd years ago who was very concerned. He still had a secretary, and he didn't want to get a computer himself because that would put his secretary out of a job. And I said, well, hang on a second. If you did your own emails and what have you not thought that there might be better, more interesting things the secretary could do within your business? Give her more responsibility, blah, blah, blah. It should be more than just a secretary. And he went, oh, and I'm talking about, he was quite a high-end lawyer, so he's not a stupid guy, but it's just people don't think outside the box. Now, one big problem in hospitality post-pandemic is there is staff shortages. So I don't think in the hospitality industry it's going to be a big issue that people are going to be displaced from jobs because there's a real shortage of people to do the jobs.
Short run, you're right. And
demographically, it's just going to get worse, not better.
You could very well be right. I read a report yesterday that indicated, I think this was a report from AAA, that Generation Z was taking 3 trips for every one that Gen X was taking. It's a whole new world out there, and everything is changing very, very, very quickly.
Yeah. So, for example, when I was talking about this project in the line in Saudi, their answer to staff shortages we'll just we'll go out and get some robots, and if we can't find the robots, we'll get our own robots built, because that seriously, I don't see anyone who's saying there's going to be a surplus of staff to work in hospitality in the future. It's more the opposite across the board.
And that's the thinking of unlimited budget as well. So for some of our listeners, budget may be more of a concern.
Well, I tell you what, robots tend to work out to be cheaper than humans.
I'm going to push back on that one, because there's the classic case study of the hotel in Japan that went almost entirely robot. And I think the place practically shut down within 3 years because all the robots broke down and they had to hire so many people to fix them that they went back to human staff. But that would have been also the case in the first generation of robots in car manufacturing plants. Now it just doesn't happen. I'm just saying, at the end of the day, there will always be jobs in the foreseeable future for people that want to work in hospitality. Even with AI, they're not going to be out of a job, because there's just such a shortage of people, and the demographics are that the birth rate's dropping, and there will be over time less people of a working age available to do work. And maybe there is something to that, because as we move forward and jobs become more mobile, more home-based, more whatever they're going to be, we're also, to a certain degree, have more free time at odd hours. So it could very well be that we have more flexibility to get out and do things, and need more, I'm going to call it machine-based ways to service all of that. We're kind of out of time here.
Okay.
I think we could probably chat for a whole nother hour, but I think we'll call it here for today. Mark,
Yes.
I want to thank you for chatting with me on this very timely and difficult subject, because there's a lot of unknowns here, and there's a lot of temptation to stray into the extreme, to the left or the right.
Yes.
But I think knowledge is power. And the more we all chat about these things, share ideas, share information, the better the ultimate outcome is going to become.
No, it's been absolutely great fun, and I think we should definitely maybe do it again in 6 months' time to see where if the robots have taken over, we're still here.
If I still have a position, let's do that.
Yes.
I don't think they're ready to replace me yet.
No. Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You've been watching The Innovative Hotelier. Join us again soon for up-to-the-minute insights and information specifically for the hotel and hospitality industry.